welcome to the ninth edition of Drive Through Review. Today I'm going to be talking about Lords of Scotland. I first heard about this game a couple weeks ago. I saw the designer's diary, which I'll link below, and I read that, and then I read up on the game on the Geek, and became more interested in it. And as luck would have it, I was at my local game store and waiting for people to arrive, and the owner chucked a couple of games in front of me, and this was one of them. And I read the rules to it, and I said, "Oh, this does look pretty good." And then a friend of mine showed up, and we played a game, and I was like, "Oh, that's pretty fun." Play another game. Wow, this is pretty cool. So I picked one up, and then we've been playing it all week, last week and week before, I guess, and at lunch. And just gonna show you a little bit about it. Okay. Okay, so you've got your basic setup here for a three-player game. You got your draw pile. You got your 5 cards in the center row. This never changes, no matter how many players you have. You got 3 cards here, which are scoring cards, and you lay out 1 per player. So you can see here, this one is 6, this one is 8, this one is 1. So these cards are actually part of the deck. So when you go to set up each round, you draw however many players there are, you draw a card for each of that, and you lay it out there. So the amount of points that you win at the end of each round is going to change. And if you've ever got any cards that are the same here, then you just discard to, because it'd be dumb, especially if you're doing 2-player, to have 2 sevens, right? Well, why play the round? So you set this up like that. You deal each player 5 cards to start the game. So I've got my cards here. And then the player with the Victor's Initiate card, which is randomly determined at the start of the game, and then passed to the winner of each round, they take and reveal a card face up. And this sort of acts as a timer because you're going to do 5 turns in a round. And so every time it gets back to the guy with the Victor's Initiate, you're going to turn a card up. The last card you turn up, you're going to go one more time around, and then that'll be the end of the round, and you score the round. Well, how do you score the round? Well, here I just set up a little bit of a fake hand for this other player here. So each round, you're going to draw a card from the center, and you're going to play a card. So at the end of the round, all you're going to do is total up all the points in front of each player. Whoever has the most gets the first choice of what's called the supporters. That's what these scoring cards are called, supporters. And then the next player that has the next highest points gets the next choice and the next choice. That's the basics of scoring each round. And then you just put them in a little pile in front of you, and then as soon as one player gets 40 points, it triggers the end of the game, and then everybody counts how many they have, and whoever has the most wins. So what's a basic turn look like? Well, here I've got my hand, let's say. I've got these guys here. So the first thing you have to do is take a card. Now, if you take a face-up card, you take it in your hand, and you replace it with a face-up card. If I were to take a face-down card, I take that card and put that down. So I'll take a card. Let's take this one, replace that one, and then I'm going to figure out which one I'm going to play. Well, you might think, well, this sounds pretty stupid. All I'm going to do is play the highest cards I got. Aha. But as you can see, there are 8 different colors of cards. And each color has a different power on the side. So you see this one says swap with supporter. This one says muster clan, draw a card, do not discard this, blah, blah, blah. So what happens, though, is the only way for the power to trigger when you play it is if it is the lowest card on the table. So if this guy had no cards out, and I was first player, I could play this 11, and its power would trigger because there's no other cards out. But when this guy went to play, if he had his 12 here, if he plays this card, its power won't trigger. Now he could play this 11 because it's equal to or lower than, and its power would trigger. If he played a 2, well, that would trigger, but then that would lock anybody out from playing any more powers unless they played a 2 or a 1. Well, what do these powers do? Let's go over them really quickly here. So we've got swap with a supporter. Now this is really interesting because if you play this card, it'll go down, and then you can swap it with one of the scoring cards. So you can actually muck with the way the rounds are going to score. And, you know, right away you can think, oh, well, if I'm going to win, I may throw this 10 out there so I can get that greater percentage or greater, you know, count at the end of the round. If I'm going to lose, I may replace the highest number with a 1 so that it, you know, decreases the differential. So that's pretty interesting. And there's some other reasons you might get that. This one here, this is claim 2 supporters. So when it comes your turn to claim a supporter, you're going to claim 2 instead of 1 if there's 2 to choose. If you got last in this case, obviously you don't get 2 because there was only 1 left. Copy another power. So if this activates when you place it, then it copies that you can pick a power and copy it. Pretty simple. This is swap with another clan. Basically it means swap with any other card. So I can swap with my opponent, you know, or any of my opponents and change the balance of the scoring. Do not discard this. So at the end of each round, you're going to discard everything here. All these cards in the center, everybody's going to discard the cards in front of them. But this card, if it's triggered, won't discard. Draw a card. This is basically draw a card off the top of the deck. Discard another clan. So you can actually just blow up one of their cards and send it right to the discard pile. Pretty strong, pretty evil, pretty mean. This one is muster another clan. So if you play this one and its power activates because it's the lowest number, then you can immediately play another card right in front of it. Now, some things to keep in mind with this game, it still sounds pretty simple, but there's a couple other little things here. So for example, when I play this muster card, I'm not going to draw back up to 5 cards. I'm now down to 4 cards for the rest of the game. Oh, unless of course I play this draw card. Okay. And the other thing is some of these powers are immediate. It's like the muster the clan. That's going to happen. You can do it right away. Swap a supporter. You can do that right away. Copy a power. That happens right away, but there's a little caveat to that. I'll get that in a second. Swap another clan right away. Draw a card right away. Well, these cards here do not, do not trigger right away because they trigger at the end of the round. This is my one little gripe with the game is it's not super clear about it. You know, the designer got on and actually answered some questions about it, clarified it, and it made a lot more sense after the first time we played. So what we do for the power that triggers at the end is when you play it, that's when you check if the power is legally active. So if the 7 was equal to or lowest the card, then we know that this power activates towards the end of the round. Well, how are you going to remember? So we just tap it, right? We turn it 90 degrees. So anything that's 90 degrees, we check and say, okay, well, this power was legal when it came into play. So that's pretty interesting. And it's also, it puts up a nice target because this guy claimed 2 supporters. Well, if you have a discard this clan card, then you want to use that. Or maybe I have both of these in front of me, the discard the clan and the copy 2 supporters, and then you play copy a power, copy my discard, and then make me discard my own, claim 2 supporters card. Now there's 2 other important parts of playing a card in front of you. A, you don't have to always play a card in front of you face up. You may play it face down, okay? If you play it face down, its power will never activate. But there's some reasons that you might want to do that. One of the reasons is if you have all cards of the same color in front of you, then you add up all the totals on the numbers and then double your score. So you may not want to reveal that you're doing that. Most time people can probably tell, but that might be a way to hide that. The other thing that you want to keep in mind with this is that at the end of the round, after you score, everybody's grabbed their supporters, you swapped in a new center row, you keep your hand, okay? So even if you feel like you're not going to win this particular skirmish or round, you can still be pulling cards up as these get revealed or pulling from the face down and hoping you get a good card for the next round and the next round. So that you could be setting yourself up to get all of the same color. So I've got, let's say, 3 of these in my hand, and I'm just doing poorly. They blew up all my cards. I'll just take this one, and then next round I'll play it face down. And I'll be behind in points, so nobody will really pay attention to me. And then you turn around and flip it up and say, oh, sorry. So there's a lot of cool interactions. It's really fun. We played it a lot with 2 and 3 people. That's really fun. It's pretty quick, 30 minutes or so, probably less or more, depending on how the points shake out. That's another nice aspect of it is these supporters here. If there's a 12 out here and a 5 and a 1, well, boy, you really want that 12 because that's a 7 and a 11-point difference. So you're going to get really hosed. So you'll kind of see people sort of all pull the trigger at once. And, then you'll have a big, massive battle. So there's, I think some people might think there's a lull between rounds, but I don't really see it that way. You have to be more careful and strategic and not just keep going out and out and out and go for it all the time. And that really adds a nice element to the game. One other card I forgot to mention is that there's 8 clans and there's 1 through 12 in all the clans. And then there's one other sort of special clan. And there's only 2 of these cards and they're both rank 12. And this is Clan Bruce here, Robert the Bruce. And his power is join each bloodline, which basically makes him a wild card. So it's nice because it'll help you with your, monetary color strategy that you may be going for that particular round. And he's also a 12. The problem is if you put him face down, well, his power never activates. So at the end of the round, he's going to be gray. He's not going to be whatever color you want him to be. You have to put it out, and you've got to put it out first because, like I said before, the lowest card on the table equal to or lower has to activate. So if you wait to, the third turn to play that, you're 100% chance this is not going to activate. So you put that out, and then everybody goes, oh, well, he must either just have it and want a 12 out, or he's going to try to go for a solid color win this time. One other thing about the 2 and 3 player. Now, the difference between the 2 and 3 player and the 4 and 5 player is the way the powers activate. So like I said before, lowest number or equal to lowest will activate. In a 4 and 5 player game, it's the lowest or equal to lowest of that color. Because the reason they did that, and the guy talks about it in his design diary, is because in a 4 or 5 player game, you're going to have 1, 2, 3 players play, and by the time it gets around to that 4th and 5th guy, there's not going to be much powers available to activate because just the nature of the distribution of the cards. So then it just becomes playing for the highest card. But when they add that element in of it's per color, then you get some really wacky stuff. You get a lot more copying of powers. You get a lot more stealing of the people's green cards and all that stuff, and it gets really cool. It does tend to drag a little bit. My group that I played with sort of, the 5-player game we played was sort of a learning game too. But I really enjoyed the 5-player game. If you're going to block out an hour and a half, depending on the pace of the players in the game, it's fun. And if you play a multiplayer Magic game or something, with 5 people, it's going to take an hour or so. It's not like a 2-player Magic game. You have to get it done in 20 minutes or 30 minutes maybe. And this sort of has that same pacing, 2-3 player, 30 minutes, and then 4-5 hour or more. Well, I hope you enjoyed my review of Lords of Scotland. It's really fun. At one of these, I seem to have a theme here of cheap card games that I review. Maybe I should rename my review to Cheap Card Game Guy or something. Anyway, this is $6. Boards and Bits had it for $6. I'm sure you can find it for similar prices, but you should get it from there. Anyway, but yeah, it's fun. Check it out.